whenever.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. We are so excited about our business boost this month. We have something a little bit different for you, but something I think everybody will really enjoy and some great information to get out into the community. We've got two special folks with us today. We've got Josh, and I'm probably going to say, Josh, your last name wrong. So, Hazelrigg.
Oh,
Is
that
that
was
right?
perfect.
Perfect. And of course, Judge Amy Lewis. So with Greene County Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Division. So we're excited to have both of you here today to kind of tell us what's going on with that side of the court system, what programs you have going on that can help benefit our youth, and just kind of give us the rundown on what's happening out in Greene County. So we're excited and welcome, and thank you guys so much for doing this. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you all for giving us the opportunity to speak about the many programs we have at the court and to talk a little bit about the processes because I tell you, I've been at this court for 26 years and I have a completely different perspective of the juvenile justice system than I did back in 2000 when I started working at the court.
Well, we're excited to learn more about it. And with that, Chris, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you so you can tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about Judge Amy.
Yeah, I have a couple of bios just so everybody kind of gets to get a good feel for who Judge Amy is and who Josh is. So, Judge Amy Lewis has served as the judge of the Greene County Juvenile Court since March 2021 and was previously a magistrate at that court from March 2000 to March 2021 and the court administrator from 2016 to 2021. And prior to this, she served as an assistant prosecuting attorney for the Greene County Prosecutor's Office and was the Xenia City prosecutor. She graduated from the University of Kentucky, Go Cats, and Ohio Northern University College of Law. And then Josh Hazelrigg, has been the Greene County Juvenile Court, uh, been with the Juvenile Court since June of 2023, first as the Chief Probation Officer and then as the Juvenile Justice Outreach Coordinator. And prior to that, Josh was a high school special education and social studies teacher for 15 years and then a middle school administrator for 2 more years. He's a graduate of Wright State University and has earned further professional certifications from the University of Cincinnati, University of Dayton, and Georgetown University. So, welcome, guys. We're so glad you're here. And Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can share your screen. I know you guys have a great presentation to show us today, and we'll just let you roll with it.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Chris. And let me share my screen. So yeah, today we're going to talk to you guys about the court process, programming, and then what we call the continuum of care, because it's really important for the community to understand what we do here as a court, and then also what programs we offer for youth so that everybody kind of understands what we do as a juvenile court. Um, so I'll briefly start us off with this with this graphic. So when I came into the court 3 years ago, it is learning from a fire hose. You don't understand how complex our system actually is until you're completely in it. So this flow chart that we have is actually our entire court process. And what's fascinating about this is when I first started as a probation officer, I had to learn this on the fly. And there's a lot of pieces, there's a lot of jargon to it that a lot of the just general public doesn't understand, doesn't know. So when they hear words like diversion, probation, compliance, family navigation, intervention centers, assessment centers, they really don't understand what's going on and where that youth might be. So for everybody else, everybody watching, we are going to go through this piece by piece. We're not going to throw this at you and make you have to follow along on one chart. I will also say we're not going to focus on the detention portion of this chart just because detention does have programming, but we're going to focus more on the youth that are out in the community that are still involved with the court. So I'm going to pass it over to Judge Lewis to start us off with the assessment center.
All right. Juvenile court, I used to think that juvenile court was just for youth that have been charged with an offense and then they come into the system and then we have adjudication, disposition. But is so much more. We want youth to be able to receive services without having to be charged with an offense. So we start off with prevention services, and we have a service continuum. And if you look at the service continuum, you will see that we want community resources first. So what we did is a few years ago, we developed an assessment center, and we opened the assessment center, I think about a month after COVID hit. So it took us a while to get on our feet and to be able to offer services. But the idea is that we have assessment service coordinators. Anyone can make a referral to them. It can be law enforcement, police, a school teacher, a neighbor. And it's a voluntary process where we bring the family in, and our assessment service coordinator talks to the family, finds out what barriers are in existence, and helps to identify services for any of the issues that the youth and or family may have. So with the service continuum, we want those prevention services first, but maybe a youth does get charged with an offense, and depending upon what the offense is, they may be able to go through diversion, which is an informal process. But I will tell you that whenever we have a case that goes through diversion, we always let the prosecutor's office know. So if it's a case that they have some background information about and they say, you know what, this isn't a good case for diversion, then we're going to have it formally filed before the court. But along the way, I think it's important to tell you about the types of diversion cases that we have. They're primarily truancy cases, and we do a really good job keeping statistics and data, and I have to give that to Josh because he's the one that does it. And we identify what needs are in the community so we can address those needs. Now, sometimes things don't always work out in diversion, and then we move on to compliance, and it's been described as a bridge between diversion and probation. We don't put you in probation, but we want you to work with someone a little bit more intensely in the community. And sometimes it doesn't work, so we go to probation. And while youth are in probation, usually those are kids that have some moderate to high risk needs. And we use a screening device to determine what sort of needs the kids have. And once the kids go into probation, we may then move on to putting them in our intervention center. We've changed our intervention center recently. It's a 28-day intense program where we pick up kids after school, and they work with these youth. And we'll tell you a little bit more later on, more in depth about what the intervention center does. But there's a multitude of services that are offered through them. Now, that's where we hope that the services stop. Unfortunately, sometimes there has to be more intensive services, and Greene County has one of the 10 community correctional facilities for juveniles in the state, and we accept kids from all over the state who are felony offenders for that CCF, the Miami Valley Juvenile Rehabilitation Center. And the last stop is the Department of Youth Services. That again is for felony offenders, but there are no other options. We've tried to keep youth in the community, but for the community safety, for their safety, then that's an option that we choose.
So where we're going to start off is back at the assessment center. So like Judge said, our goal initially is prevention. And as you can see by this chart, it is recognizing those ongoing issues prior to them becoming court involved. Because if we can catch them early, get services in early, we can prevent a lot of court involvement, youth carrying records, into adulthood, things like that. So this is the first model that we're gonna speak to you guys about in terms of what services the court provides.
So with the assessment center, as I indicated earlier, anyone can make a referral, and it has to be a voluntary process. One of the things that Greene County is so wonderful about, and we have attorneys that tell us this from other counties, there's so many community partners that work together for our families and to provide services. So our assessment center, they have what we call an A-team meeting on Wednesdays. Our assessment service coordinators will receive cases. Wednesdays, there's a Zoom meeting with a number of our community partners, and it may include Children's Services, Violence Free Futures, someone from Family and Children First, our probation officers. And the cases that have been referred to the court, whether it's self-referral or by an outside agency, they're brought before the A-team and they discuss the referral. What are the barriers? What does this family need? What do these children need? And how can we connect them with services? So it's really nice because we have people who come from a diverse background of professional experiences, and they can contribute so much to that A-team meeting. Now, We also have people who follow up to make sure those connections, they actually happen. I think about going into a doctor's office and they tell you a lot of information and then you walk out and you're like, no, what did they just say? Because we're not familiar with the language. And in juvenile court, sometimes we have a tendency to think, okay, here's what you need to do. And then we later think, wow, that was a lot of information for someone to process. So we have individuals that'll call back and say, how can I help? Have you connected with services? How's it working out? Can we give you anything else? Now, there's a number of assessment tools we use to determine what the needs of these kids are. And the assessment tools tells us what to focus on. And one of the most interesting assessment tools that we use, and I was really surprised to hear the data from this one, is adverse childhood experiences. Over 80% of the youth have at least one adverse childhood experience. And I was told by Dr. Greta Mayer, who has she's a CEO of the mental health for Madison, Clark, and Greene, that those are only the kids who feel comfortable enough talking to you, telling you about their past experiences. So you think about those traumatic experiences and how they affect children, and we really want to be able to intervene so that they don't have difficulties in other areas of their life. Now, one of the things that Greene County has done is we have a family alliance committee, and actually Beth Rubin, who's the director of Job and Family Services, she initiated this because we had so many youth that parents were wanting to remove them from their homes and put them in residential facilities. And we just wanted to work with these families so they didn't get to that point. So the team consisted of a number of individuals from around the county, including our county administrator, and we developed iFast. It's an evidence-based supported family treatment model, and it can be applied to a wide range of child and adolescent behavior. And we have individuals, and we contract, that go into these homes. They are able to observe the families and they help them work on the issues that they have. And they go into the homes a few times a week, maybe 2 hours at a time for 5 to 6 months. So that has been really wonderful because these families, they have that support. And a lot of our families have transportation issues. So we're going to them. They don't have to come to us. We have a number of other screenings, and I want to get back to that, tools where their health-related social needs are addressed. What sort of services do our Greene County families need? Do they need more food? Are they having housing issues, transportation issues? And we focus on that. Now, the last thing I will tell you about with our assessment center, and this is something new, we received a substantial grant for in-home behavioral therapy, and that's more intensive than the IFAS therapy. We have a multidisciplinary team. It can be the therapist, a psychiatrist, case manager, and the cases that are referred to them, they go into the homes about 3 times a week. They meet for 5 to 6 hours, and then they process the family collaboratively. Am I saying that word correctly? No. To determine what needs the family has and how they can meet them. And these are the kids that are at risk of being removed from their home. And that is not what we want. We want to keep them in the home and help the families identify how they can help keep these families in the home. And they're not so overwhelmed that they're contacting the court and asking for removal. Now, the importance of the assessment center and the continuum process basically it's to identify the needs, the barriers, and connect to services. And once someone told me how important data was, because we need to make data-driven decisions, then you need to paint a picture for us as to what the needs are in the community. And that's what we do. And I can tell you that the referred cases to the assessment center in terms of recidivism, coming back before the court in some other manner, I believe it's over 75% of the cases, once we see them, we never see these families or kids again. So actually, I think it's well over 75%. I want you to understand how important it is for these data points, because we don't want to be providing services that feel great, but they're not actually doing anything. Yeah. So why refer to the intervention center? There may be behavioral issues. Maybe kids aren't going to school. They're running away from home. families are going through a divorce, or maybe they have some other family issues going on. So we would like to be able to assist those families with ensuring that this doesn't go any further in terms of their issues and problems in the home.
And speaking from a former teacher standpoint, a lot of these things, these triggers that we see as a court are ones that we see in schools. When we talk about the assessment center and who can refer, that includes schools. I've gone out to every middle school and every high school in our county and met with them and talked about the importance of our assessment center because as a former administrator, you have a kid come from a bad weekend or something going on, they carry it with them into the schools. They carry it with them when they're hanging out with friends. They carry it with them all the time. And if we don't prevent it, it can escalate. I have been in way too many situations where something was said to a kid just having a bad day and it escalated to a fight. And nowadays, with schools having SROs, there are schools that have those policies that those carry charges now. And so, part of the assessment center is if we can catch these things early on, the fighting, the bullying, the peer conflicts, the attendance issues. Why aren't you going to school? Um, we can disrupt the cycle. And if we can disrupt the cycle, we can give these kids a better chance at their academics. We can give them a better chance of going to school. We can give them a better chance of having a happy life. Because education is key to everything in our world. So that's our assessment center. Moving on, we're now moving into the realm of formal court. So youth that have charges. Now, this is where it gets formal, informal, can be a little confusing because as Judge said earlier, charges can come to the court. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go to the courtroom. The prosecutor, we have a team here that does assessments. They can make a determination and say, you know what, this would be better for our diversion program. And so this is our diversion program. And the whole goal with diversion and where we're going to start is that it's an informal court process. Yes, the youth are going to go through programming. Yes, we're going to assess their needs and try to meet their needs. And the whole goal is if they can get through programming, they can show success there. Not only will they be successful moving forward and have those tools, but there's that possibility that complaint, those charges can be dismissed. So it's not going to follow them later on in life. And that's really, really key to success because when I was the chief probation officer, I would get a lot of phone calls from employers of 21, 22, 23-year-olds, and they'd say, well, do they have a record? Do they have this? Do they have this or that? And I've seen promotions, I've seen security clearances be denied because they still have that case on file. And so this is why it's really important that we do all these preventative things and have these other opportunities. So Judge, the diversion program.
Well, so the assessment service coordinator works with the families, and I indicated that was voluntary. Diversion is not a voluntary process. When you are charged, and when I say you, I mean a juvenile is charged with an offense or offenses, if they were given the opportunity to go through diversion, they have to admit that they committed the offense. Then they have an individual plan that is put together by the diversion officer. And our ultimate goal is to connect these kids with resources in the community and that their diversion stay is short term. One of the things that's really important is to talk about Marcy's Law because some of the kids that come through there have theft offenses, for instance, and there's a victim. And we want these victims to be whole, and we want these kids to understand how their actions affected victims. So the prosecutor's office is involved in that aspect where we reach out to the victims and we let them know that this youth has been given the opportunity to go through diversion. And if there's any restitution that's owed, that has to be part of the diversion contract. The child has to agree that they're going to be responsible for restitution. Now, when we looked at our diversion numbers, we were really surprised because I would say maybe 60% of the cases that go through diversion, they're truancy related. And that is a really tough area to address because there's a lot more going on than simply a child who just doesn't want to go to school. So with that, we developed a position within the court. It's a diversion interventionist. And we're going to have an informal truancy court where we have a team of individuals who are going to meet on a weekly basis and address these youth and bring them into court and their parents and to talk about the barriers to attending school. And we're hoping that we'll have some success with that because we all know what's going to happen if there's not a priority on education. You're going to limit yourself at very young age to having a very bleak future if you do not get that education, which is so important, not just from an educational standpoint about what you learn, but discipline, getting up in the morning, going to school, developing friendships, the social interactions. So we're hoping this year that our truancy team will be able to work on lowering the number of cases that are referred to the court for truancy related issues.
So with that, the whole diversion process, you're going to see the word screened a lot. We screen every youth that comes through here, whether it's the assessment team, we'll hear about it with probation, and the screenings are for a couple of reasons. Number one, for diversion, it's admission. Are they admitted into the program? The screening is done by our assessment center. It's also screened by the prosecutor so that we can see if they're a fit for diversion, because not every youth is going to be a fit for diversion. Like it says, the program is unofficial. It's informal court. So the whole goal here is to keep them out of the courtroom, to keep them out of those formal things. While on diversion, we're going to talk about a few of these programs that we have. So it's not just, oh, they're on diversion, they're just meeting with one person and talking. They're getting different types of program. They're learning different things. And it's all based on need. That's the really cool thing about what we do here at the court is it's all based on need. If we see that you have a need about vapes, if we see that you have a need on alcohol dependency, we have different programs for those individuals. So we're not just hurting one group, all with different needs, and saying you all have to take this one class. It's individualized, which is really key for success. Um, Once a youth completes that programming that we're going to talk about, the complaint can be dismissed. And again, that just means that they're not carrying a record with them anymore. If they don't complete programming, then there is potential of us going the next step, which we'll talk about after we get through the what's offered by the diversion program.
So I actually had to write down all the programs we have because we offer so many, and it's amazing. The number two type of diversion case we have, domestic violence cases. So we work with Violence-Free Futures, and they provide individuals from their program to come into our court. And there's an 8-week program that we have for youth who have come before the court due to being charged with domestic violence, or maybe they haven't been charged, but that's an issue in the household. So they work with them about problem solving, how to communicate better, how to have healthy relationships. We had a parent project. It was just for parents to learn parenting skills, but we've moved on from that. And we have a new one that we are introducing. We just started it, and Ohio University is actually, they're going to monitor this. We're the first court in the state that's going to be using this parenting program. But it's going to be wonderful. It's going to help parents learn to have strong relationships with their kids, typical childhood behavior, to work on that. One of the things that we've learned from our parent groups, parents love it so much that afterwards they stay in the parking lot, maybe hour, and just talk about what they learned, their kids, and how they can move forward and do better. So I think that's nice for everyone to understand, hey, it's not just my child, who has some issues or some bumps in the road. Everybody has them, and this is how we address them. Um, so all the diversion cases that are truancy related, we have academic support, and we write grants so that we can provide, say, Sylvan Learning Center. Last summer, we picked up a large number of kids and drove them several days a week to Sylvan Learning Center, and they're tested at the beginning and at the end of the program. And the majority of our kids, probably increased their knowledge by grade level at least 2 grades. Everyone did by at least 1 grade. So that was really wonderful. And this summer we're partnering with the Greene County public library system and their retired teachers. And they're tutoring our kids too, so that when they go to school in the fall, they feel strong. They are hopefully energized to start going to school. Now, one of the things that I really like that we provide through programming is we have a greenhouse. And our kids, they grow all kinds of things and they donate all of the vegetables and the herbs and the flowers. They've donated to one bistro. And the kids really like it because they literally get their hands dirty and they learn how to do things they've never done before. We had one child who was unfortunately removed from their adopted family's home and placed in a residential treatment center. And when he left, he said, "Hey, can you take pictures of my plants and send them to me? I want to see how they're going." And we thought that was very meaningful. We also have a chicken coop, and we have a lot of chickens that the kids name, and we tell them, "Don't do that. That's probably not a good idea," because a few times we've had creatures get into our chicken house, and then there are no chickens the next day. But the kids love that responsibility of being able to handle an animal and take care of the animals surrounding, feeding them, gathering the eggs as well. But we also have more structured evidence-based programs like that address mental health, substance abuse, aggression replacement therapy, problem solving, skill streaming, empathy programs, because we want kids to understand how their actions affect other people. Thinking errors, and I'm trying to think. They probably, that's probably about all I can
I must
think
say,
about right now. Yeah.
well, we also have there's two other when we were talking about individualized programs. So the previous slide just had some of the simple ones that are continuously offered. We also have the third millennium classroom. So sometimes we'll have that rare one-off youth where programming doesn't really fit, like the face-to-face programming doesn't 100% fit with a specific special need. So we have the Third Millennium Classroom, which is an online program. So they can come here and do the program, or they can do it from home. And it does limit, or it does address those specific needs. And again, some of those that they can get in classroom, but we also do here in-house anger management, bullying, cyberbullying. That's one of the biggest upticks we've seen just with social media. Social media it's great, but it's also a huge problem for these youth. The amount of bullying that they get, conflict resolution, domestic violence, drug abuse. Another one that is on the uptick because of social media, sexting, harassment, both in person, but also digital harassment, shoplifting and theft. And then another one that we have is we do a lot of partnerships here with different organizations. And one of the partnerships we have is with Violence Free Futures. Love having them come in, but they have an 8-week prevention program. And a lot of that is based on relationship building. What is a healthy relationship? What is healthy interactions? Because ever since COVID, we all joke that ever since COVID, people don't know how to interact with one another anymore. Everything's digital. Everything is, text messages and shorthand. And we don't know those social cues. We don't know those social norms anymore. And this really teaches the youth that we get, communication skills, problem solving skills. If you have a conflict with somebody, how do you appropriately handle it versus, some of the ways it could get them in trouble. So they have weekly topics. They come here and they talk about, what's your safety plan? What if something's going haywire? What is your plan? How do you get out of it? Some kids can walk away. Some need to count to 10. Some have a phone a friend. What are some red flags you look for? Those self-calming, self-soothing habits. I statements. I can do this. Also that self-motivation. Powerful and helpful versus hurtful moves, accountability, self-talk, responsibility. So a lot of that is more the internal, but it's really cool that we can partner, and we're always looking for new partners for programs like this to help our youth. We already spoke to this, the academic assistance. Again, former teacher, I will keep going back to that. It's so cool that we have these programs because, I've been in that classroom with that board student that they're 2 grade levels behind, but they keep getting promoted. Some schools do social promotion where they keep getting moved along because the social aspect, there's that social growth and the academic growth and trying to figure out which one goes where. But it's really cool that we have these tutoring programs because the academic side is so key, that youth that is bored in school. And what people don't realize too is what you're learning in 7th and 8th grade, you're going to carry into your freshman year and your sophomore year, where the grades, where you have a GPA, where you have credits you now have to earn. And board students, it's the old saying about idle hands. They're going to have idle hands and they're going to possibly create trouble. And when they create trouble, they possibly get involved with the court system or with law enforcement. So it's really cool that we have these partnerships with formerly Sylvan, but now the library, so that we can get these kids the assistance they need.
And the confidence the kids have, it's pretty amazing when they see that they're capable. Most kids, they just give up because they keep on getting more and more behind. And when these kids realize that they're capable and they can do this, it just really empowers them to be good students, to go to school and to try.
So now we're going to lead into, what happens when it's the formal part. So we've run through not picking up charges, our assessment center. Then we hit on our diversion program, the informal, try to get that case dismissed. Now it's that as we're moving down the continuum of care, the even more higher needs and the formal court process. And we start that formal court process with something Judge already touched on a little bit, is a lot of our cases, we talk about, the role of the victim. So I'll let Judge handle the role of victim.
So Marcy's Law is very important in the court system because it gives victims the right to be heard at every stage of the proceedings. And we want kids to understand that they have a victim and that they need to make restitution for these offenses that they have for their crimes. And the victims have victim impact statements, or maybe they have a victim representative who appears in court. The prosecutor's office always has a victim advocate in court at the pretrials, the adjudicatory hearings, dispositional hearings, to be the voice of the victim. So we take that very seriously because I think when kids realize that, wow, my victim's another human being, they're a mom, they're a dad, they're a kid, it's impactful for them to be able to see how their actions can be so impactful in a bad way upon people.
So, that leads us into, we're taking into consideration the feelings of the victims. We're now looking at everything as a whole. And I'm gonna pass this one also to Judge because she's the one that gets to then handle disposition.
All right, so I can tell you when I started at the court back in 2000, disposition was very different. Disposition basically was fines, court cost, and you're going to detention. You're suspended for 5 days, you're going to spend 5 days in detention. And that doesn't change behavior. It was not in the best interest of a child. So what we like to do is we like to look at a child as who they are, an individual, find out what their needs are, how can we meet those needs, and we also ask parents to chime in on a case plan because parents know these kids better than we do, and we want parents to share in the success when there's a case plan put together and the parents were part of that and they see, wow, my kid's successful and I had a in that. So yes, we do still have fines and court costs and restitution, but we have probation that kids can be placed on, and we do give detention time. Sometimes that is the way we need to go as well. And we work our way up. If you're a felony offender, you may go to our Miami Valley Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, and you'll be there with youth from around the state. Greene County runs it. It's a 30-bed facility. Or the very end of the continuum would be the Ohio Department of Youth Services, and there's 3 DYS facilities in the state of Ohio, and you are there with kids who are at the end of their service continuum as well. Really serious offenses. There's no other options in the community, and we never want to get there. So we know that some of these kids, they have mental health, drug issues, and if we address those, they may never come back before the court. If you look at our data, they usually don't, if we can address those needs and get the services that they need. So we may order that. Community service, if you look, we have murals that the kids have painted, and the one in Fairborn is pretty special. Josh was in charge of that one. It's basically, when you talk about the continuum, it's a flight, and which is appropriate for Fairborn. And out at Emerge, the kids put a mural on the side of a building, and it's basically a summer project, and the kids are really proud because they work with K-12 Gallery, and it looks really professional. So we will be looking for another site. We haven't put one in Beaver Creek, so maybe give us a few ideas if we can get the funding where someone will give us literally the side of a building, and we will have something wonderful and meaningful for your community. But I know kids really, really appreciate that because they see that they've contributed something to their community. Just like the donations from their garden, and kids feel like, wow, I'm someone in the community, I'm making a difference, I'm doing something positive. They enjoy that as well.
So with disposition, we kind of touched a little bit, but we hear the word probation a lot. As a former probation director, it's kind of the one place that I have the expertise on, so to speak. So when a youth comes in and they're placed on probation, the first thing is I always joke that the contracts for probation is like signing for a house. There's a lot of paperwork that's involved that you have to go over, rules, and different waivers, because we do want our youth to do community service. The picture I have on here is the youth painting the mural at Emerge. So what was really cool about those mural projects is, it's a summer project. The youth would go out to our different sites. So this was at Emerge. The other one was at a karate dojo out in Fairborn that had the history of flight, but they put up this image like a paint by numbers. It's really cool. They take a projector and they draw it out in pen, and they write the letters of what paint goes where, and it is a really cool paint by numbers project. But it's real when we have youth out in the community doing community service, we got to make sure we have waivers, because as you can see, we got ladders out there, and what we haven't, knock on wood, had any injuries, but there's always the possibility. But going back, so they sign all of these things off, and they then work on what we call a case plan. And that case plan is, what are their goals? And when I say goals, it used to be the old ways. The goals were get off probation, do my court orders. And we found that wasn't addressing the root of the problem. Yeah, it was taking care of what they did that potentially got them in court and court involved and those things, but what was the root cause of it? So now they go through case planning, and it's more intentional. It's more family engaged. The parents come in, what goals, what things would you like to see your child doing? What goals does the child have? And sometimes they have nothing to do with their court orders. We've had kids say, you know what, I want to get a job. There's no court order that says get a job, but they are able to say, that's my goal, because if I have a job, I'm not running around with some influences that might have gotten me in trouble in the past. So it's those things that probation is trying to address. Being consistent. Everything they do is assessment informed. They do what's called the OYAS assessment. And it's, okay, what are your needs? What are your risks? And the whole thing is, getting that accountability, but skill building. They are over at the assessment center, the intervention center, but we also have a part-time community service coordinator. And, doing those skills, teaching them, how to be a productive member of society. And the last thing is connecting those youth to, again, those services. We have a family navigator here, and she is absolutely wonderful. And what she does is she looks at all these cases and says, okay, maybe they need some counseling. Here's a list of potential people you can reach out to. Um, and the other thing is with those services, with the community service coordinator, we can use that to help with fees and fines. We can use that with to help with restitution. Because what we find with a lot of the youth that we see that come through our doors is they don't have the financial means to pay their fees and fines. They don't have the ways and means to take care of these things. So we get grants so that we can say, okay, well, we can get you to work and earn money that way to then pay the victim or pay off fees and fines. So it's really cool, all the things that probation can do. And then your length of stay on probation is based on your offense. So, some youth are on longer than others, and our goal is always to address those needs, get those court orders completed, and set them up so that we don't see them again. I always joke that working in the court system, we are one of the few professions that we are actively trying to work ourselves out of a job. Because if we can give these kids what they need, they're not committing crimes, there's no need for us. And that's honestly our goal. And it's kind of a strange goal. It's very counterintuitive to a working person of what's your goal in your job? To not have a job anymore. But for us, that means there's no crime. So, one of the things that the youth in probation can be involved in is we used to call it our intervention center. It's now been rebranded. With the rebranding, Judge, I'll let you talk about the ERIP. I don't know if they call it ERIP or.
Yeah, well, it's our evening reporting center, and that's for kids who are in probation and they need a little bit more assistance and more people from the court to help them get to where they need to be successful. And we pick up the kids every day from school and bring them back, and we have tutors there, mental health counseling, group counseling, and if there's substance abuse issues, then there's a counselor there to address those needs as well. One of the things that is the kids like the best about the after school program, when we have a questionnaire at the end of the program, when we ask them what they like and didn't like, and the number one thing is food. Food, but and we all like food, but kids that attend the intervention center, a lot of them don't have a lot of food in their household. And so we noticed that, and we will send food home with kids. We'll say, oh, you know what? We made way too much food. And we have a bunch of styrofoam containers, and we say, can you take some to your brother or your sister? You would be surprised. I had an in-camera interview with some kids before a permanent custody hearing, and one of the kids said to me, I didn't know families had 3 meals a day until I went into foster care. And it took me aback, and I sat there for a moment. But that's what a lot of our kids are facing that come through the court. That's an issue. They're hungry. So kids love it. And we have people who cook these full meals there, and they sit around the family table and they eat and they talk and they learn manners. And that's something wonderful. Part of the program, as I talked earlier, was our gardening program and life skills. But the Evening Reporting Center, we have a 28-day intensive program, because we would find if you were on a Monday, Wednesday track and you decided you weren't going to go on Monday and Wednesday, then maybe the next week you came, but it could be a couple weeks since you've last seen a child. And we just thought the more intense the services are, and if the kids know that there's an endpoint, we'll be more successful. So we're hoping that this intensive involvement with these kids will produce better outcomes for them as well. Our overall goal is reducing risk and supporting long-term success for these kids. And I really do think this program is going to be very good at doing that. So we'll let you know.
Yeah. And one thing I'll go back to with the food is what's really cool with our greenhouse too is we make in-house salsa.
Oh yeah, they have
Uh,
contests.
so we have salsa contests, and the kids really get into it, and it's neat to see them. Because when I was little, my dad had a garden, and I hated getting my hands dirty. I will fully admit that. But seeing some of these kids that have never gardened before, and seeing how proud they are when they're like, "Hey, I made this jar of salsa," and then we have the contest, and everybody talks about how good it is. And it's a real good confidence booster. Like, these things are fun. These things are productive, and they're learning those important skills.
Yeah, you would be surprised about how much kids like the gardening. The kids at our Miami Valley Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, they're there anywhere from 6 months to maybe 18 months. And we have a large garden behind the building, and they're constantly asking to go out there and pull weeds and see how their flowers are doing. And there's just a lot of pride in that gardening. So if you come to the building, you drive around to the back of the building, and you'll see two gardens, one for the MBJRC kids, which is closer to our main building, and then one right by our evening reporting center as well. And it's pretty impressive.
So just some other programs that our youth that are on probation go through. We already spoke to community service. These are other things that we have done. So if you ever see the Gators running around the Greene County Fair picking up the trash bins, that's usually our youth. Every so often, other groups also volunteer to do that, but that's something we commonly do over the Greene County Fair. The Charles Young Buffalo Soldiers Monument, we helped with their revival. We do a lot of donations, so we have Bridges of Hope. I remember last year we did cookie baking for Violence Free Futures. We also did care packages for Violence Free Futures. We've done like making holiday cards for people at different facilities, different places. We collaborate with the Behavioral Health Center, help teens process with trauma. Um, so that's another partnership that we use. Life skills, we've talked a lot about that. Um, they get a lot of that when they're over at the evening programming, um, that they are able to learn those skills of teamwork, patience, appreciation. And then it makes me laugh just as a former teacher, the scholastic articles, cultural films. As a teacher, my students always loved when it was movie day. But these are films to really focus on some of those needs: ethics, social justice, curiosity, open-mindedness. So these skills that it's not just a movie day. There's a goal behind these movies. There's things that they want to teach them. Same with scholastic articles, so that they are really applying and seeing, what we want them to experience and produce to the community. So it's really cool, the wealth of things that we try to get for the youth. But we all know that it's not just the youth that have the needs. It takes a village, and the important part of the village is the family. So we have two more programs to talk about, and both programs are revolve around the family. So, Judge, I'll let you start with family engagement.
Alright. So we developed a family engagement mentor program where we have individuals that go into people's homes and assist them. And it's been very successful because they are in the homes, they're an advocate for everyone in the home. They teach them, they help them connect services, they talk about truancy issues. We're really lucky because our family engagement mentors were former children's services caseworkers, so they bring that background with them, so they understand family development and what the needs are. But basically, they help build connections between the court and the family, and they may be with a family for 6 months. We have parents who have really expressed a lot of gratitude for having these individuals come into their home, whether it be a family engagement mentor or I talked about, IFAST earlier, the in-home behavioral therapy with the counseling, because they feel heard and they feel that like their needs are being met. And they also provide some programming when it's appropriate. So basically, they're in the homes to meet the needs of the families there. And if we could expand the program, we would, but this is our budget.
And then kind of the last one, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but just to reiterate, it used to be Parent Project, but we've made some changes, and so we have the very long title now of Intentional Parenting Practices to Build Connections. And that's the new program that we use that's going to replace Parent Project. But again, it's that supportive group for parents and caregivers, and it's learning those parenting skills. Um, One of the cool things I think is when I look down at parents will learn, yeah, we're talking about responding calmly, we're talking about strengthening those connections, but reframing behaviors as communication. There's a lot of negative behaviors, or there's just behaviors in general that the youth are trying to communicate something and maybe they just don't have the words, they don't have the um the age and the experience to express it properly, and that's their way of saying, hey, I need help. You kind of compare it to like an infant that starts crying because it's hungry, because that infant can't say I'm hungry. That's their tool, that's their mechanism. And some of these youth, their outbursts, um the way that they handle situations is just their way, could be their way of communicating. And it's teaching parents, okay, now that they've communicated this way, how are you going to respond? How are you going to remain calm, because some of these responses are can get things a little heated. And holding your kid accountable, but at the same time teaching those routines, how to de-escalate and how to do crisis management. So it's really cool because again, the parents are taught, like part of it is parents teaching or being taught, and then the other part is them forming this community of support where, like Judge said, they talk to each other outside in the parking lot. They share stories. And what's really cool about it is these parents don't feel isolated anymore. A lot of times these parents will come in and they're like, wow, I didn't know this parent was also having the same problem as me. And it's really cool because you don't feel isolated anymore. You don't feel like, oh man, I'm the bad parent because my kid did X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. Um, so it helps build that community. So we've gone through programming. We've exhausted everything.
Everything.
Not everything. There's so much more that we could get into, but with limited time. But what happens at the end of the rainbow? When a youth is on probation, what's the final outcome? So this is kind of where we wrap up, is what we call, I have on here probation terminations, but we have these level of terminations for probation and diversion. They just look a little different, but these are the designations. So
Yeah, and it's important that kids are successfully terminated from probation, because if they want to expunge and seal the juvenile record, you need to have that successful completion. And it's really important. I think about college applications, there's a question on there that asks you, whether you've been involved in the court system or maybe a future employer. And because you had a theft charge as a juvenile, it prevents you from getting a job as an adult. So we really work with kids to have those successful terminations, and then we tell them how they can go and have their records sealed and expunged at the end. One thing I will leave you with is Beaver Creek. I think we have had community service kids work the Popcorn Festival. So if you have any places that you need kids to come and do community service, reach out to the court, let us know, because we're always looking for new places to bring kids to do community service. And actually, they end up enjoying it because most of the places we go, the people who are there, they're really kind to our kids. They have snacks, and so the kids look forward to doing that community service.
and it's really helpful for us because, I'm not going to focus on the unsuccessful, where we've exhausted everything we possibly could, but the neutral, because like we said earlier, community service can pay some of those fees and fines, and some of our youth that can't afford those costs, they don't have the money in pocket, doing things like the Popcorn Festival, doing things like the Greene County Festival, the murals really help pay their fees and fines. And, you know, we all know that people can be very short-sighted. They look at their immediate future, what's right in front of them. And some of them aren't thinking about 10 years down the road. I'm at the Air Force and I want to go up and earn more stripes. And they might be, it might be something as simple as they didn't pay their fees and fines with their court costs, and that's preventing them from taking the next step. So, as Judge said, we're always looking for opportunities, and along those lines, so that Judge isn't inundated by people reaching out to her because she's got a very busy docket.
Everyone's
Um,
busy here. Everyone.
my contact information is on here, and my role with the court is exactly what we're doing right here. It's to educate, communicate. As I've always said, this is a snippet of what we do here at a court, but I've got data galore of what's happening specifically in Beaver Creek. So if there's ever any questions, um, any opportunities that people want us to come and speak, they want to learn more about the court and what's happened with juveniles in your community, here here I am. I don't have my phone number out there, so but anybody can feel free to email me, and we can sit down and talk.
Well, Josh and Judge, this has been excellent. Very informative. I don't know about you, Wendy, but I learned a lot today.
I did too, and it's amazing everything that we have here in Greene County. That's just why I love Greene County. Even with our different towns here, we're all so unique, but yet we come together and we have so much that we offer, and we do so many great things here in Greene County. I'm really proud of all of that. And it's pretty amazing what you guys are doing for our juveniles. I mean, Chris and I talk about that too. I mean, those are our future leaders, right? So we need to take care of these kids and give them the skills that they need and help them through the tough times and show them there's more. Changes can be made, things can be better. And I just really appreciate all that you guys are doing. I love the gardening and the chicken coop. I think that is awesome. Awesome. So yes, we will absolutely keep it in mind too for other community service ideas for the kids. I didn't even think about that. So thank you for sharing because we have a lot of opportunities that could be great for them. So when they come around, we'll reach out and Josh, maybe there's something that we can work out and get the kids some other exposure and some other opportunities. I think that would be fabulous.
Absolutely. Like it said earlier, it takes a village, and
Yeah,
um, yeah, anything we can do to make our community better, because like you said, they're our future, and this is home. And
right, exactly.
I don't know about anybody else, but I like my home to be really nice, and I want other people to enjoy my home.
Absolutely. Hey, one of our big sayings here at the Beaver Creek Chamber is we're all just going to be better together. And that
Oh
truly
yeah,
is.
that's
It's better
nice.
together is what it means, and it's truly what you guys are doing and how I feel like our county is. So thank you so much again for being here and for giving all of this information. And thank you for doing all the great work, both you, Josh, and Judge Lewis. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you for giving us this time to talk about the program. We really appreciate it. Or the programs here at the court. We really appreciate it.
Very
Well,
much.
great. Thank you so much. And we're going to wrap things up. But folks, like I said, reach out to Josh if you have any questions or would like other information. And maybe you have opportunities that might be a good pairing for what's going on with the justice system and for our local youth. So, but take care. And we thank you guys once again for being our guest this month. And we will be putting this out into the world on social media and it'll be on our YouTube channel. So we can always send it to people and let them know they can learn about what's going on if we have these conversations just even in passing. So this is a great way to kind of memorialize this conversation and presentation so that we can share that. So we look forward to having that out there.
Thank you
Thanks, you
very much.
guys.
Have a good
All
day.
right,
Thank
take
you.
care, guys.
Have a great day.